So many of us long for a way of life in Jesus that closes the gap between how we want to live and how we actually live. What we need are practices and supportive environment where we can take risks to follow the way of Jesus in the details of our lives.
I was really bored with Christians who talk about what they're gonna do or what the purpose of their time here is, and then not doing any of it.
Living the way that Jesus calls us to is so much more than that. It should kind of infiltrate every aspect of our life.
I'm just wanting to follow Christ. I want to flesh it out.
What does it look like to practice this stuff? What does it look like to walk the way Jesus walked and talk the way Jesus talked?
In our kind of Western heads, we're so focused on the idea of just learning through books and learning through talking that we can really forget that action needs to be a part of the process.
What if instead of talking about prayer, we actually prayed? What if instead of discussing issues of injustice in our world, we took a tangible step together to do something that might make a difference? What if instead of just being honest about our struggles, we help support each other in taking new positive actions in our lives?
What would it be like if there was a group of us trying to do this together, like to live this out and practice it together?
We looked to the Gospels and said, what did Jesus tell people to do? And in Luke 12, he said, sell your possessions and give the money to the poor. We thought, well, what if we tried that?
We would look at what Jesus said about these things, reflect on them, talk about them, and then move to action together.
And then we were going to gather all those things that we were going to get rid of and then have a garage sale.
I think some people even sold or gave away, a car and some larger items. So now that we've actually been through this process, we sat down and discussed what happened, how did we feel about it, and how can we live differently after this? The next time we want to buy one more pair of shoes, you know what I mean, or one more television, are we going to think twice about how am I spending what has been given to me, and how do my choices impact other people?
The thing that I think is most important about this book is that it both talks about the how, but also the why. It's not just about doing things. It's about becoming the kind of person that would do those things.
In the creativity workshop, we did these photo shoots. You'd come dressed as your shadow self one week, and then the next week you'd come dressed as your future self. So what's holding us back? What are our fears? What is the part that we kind of keep in the shadows that keeps us from fulfilling the person that God wants us to be? And then our future self is that person that God wants us to be. Who is He calling us to be? What does that person look like? And it was great to have these photos to kind of remind you of, oh, this is the person I'm trying to be. And this is the person that is my weak side.
A practice or discipline is useful if it helps move us towards where we want to go. Practices for practice's sake are unnecessary and unhelpful. What's one thing you could do in the next 40 days that would change your life forever?
I wanted to find time to pray more.
I wanted to finish an Ironman race.
What happens if I live on $5 a day?
We found that it's helpful for people to have sort of a personal prescription, but also helpful to have something we're all taking on as an experiment.
We committed with some other people to only wear 2 sets of clothes, to limit our use of the internet, and to have no meat for 40 days.
Different aspects of that experiment affected people differently.
For 3 of the 4 of us, the fashion thing was a big deal. I think it taught us that, oh yeah, we can totally get by without as many clothes.
But the meat, I was just cranky for 40 days because I needed more protein. That didn't help me grow closer to Jesus. So I learned I have to have enough protein and enough food for me to function well and to love people well.
I think you had people actually having some change in their lives that would not have happened apart from that.
There's some trial and error to this. That's why I like to use the language of experimentation. We're trying a few things to find out what actually helps us be formed and transformed by the message of the gospel.
It's not something we do just on Sundays. It's not just something we do when we're in group. It's something we're trying to do throughout the week, which is why these experiments are great, because it goes beyond the time that we are together. It goes into every day we're trying to live this out.
I feel like a brand new Christian again. I received Jesus in 1970, and I went through a salvation experience of discovering God's real. Well, that's happening again.
My challenge to readers is to have the imagination for what life can look like in the kingdom of love, and to band together to figure out how we're going to walk that out together and support each other in that journey.